There we are. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Ronnie Walker, and welcome to this week's episode of RonnieandYasheka Dating Discussions. I am Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Relationships, Dating, and Sex. Uh-oh. And here we have our illustrious and gorgeous co-host uh, with Coach Yasheka. Yasheka, you care to...
Good evening, everyone out there. Listen, I'm gonna have to see if we are live. I don't know if we are live. And I'm getting some feedback that's coming back, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. Is I don't know if it's coming from your end or my end or what. But okay, I don't know if we're fixed it. But anyway, with that being said, welcome everybody. What's today? Friday night. We are going live on an unusual night, and this is just in YouTube and not in Facebook because I'm still in Facebook jail. So I have no idea if we are live in YouTube, but hopefully we are because I would love for this to be recorded. So Ronnie, we are going to talk. Well, first of all, let me make sure I introduce myself to everybody. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the Ronnie and Yasheka Dating Discussions. And as Ronnie has introduced himself, and I am Yasheka Foster, affectionately known as the artist of dating, and I empower successful women to learn to date through self-discovery while having the tools to balance it all while finding the love of their lives. And today, that's what we're talking about: women. And I was doing a little research, going through some topics to do my calendar for the month of March. And while I was going through some notes, and I was talking about midlife, that was the subject for the particular week, was midlife. And of course, I think the whole month of March, I think I'll be focused kind of like on that midlife because this is the last year of me being in my 40s. And so come next year, I will be celebrating my 50th. So that's a whole new bracket. That's a whole new, part in life. And so as I'm going through that, and I realized that this affects me and all my friends. Some of my friends are already in their 50s. Some of my friends are entering their 50s this year. And then a few of them are entering 50 next year when I enter 50. And so I have like different dynamics of friends, you know what I mean? Some that can tell me, what they've been through, what they're going through, and then I can tell them what's going to happen, right? Um, so as I'm going through that and looking at the things that comes with that age, because midlife is just 40 through 50, right? But we don't really see, when we turn 40, we're still like, you know what, I'm 40, but I'm real close to 30. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just 40. And then when you turn 42, 43, you're like, oh, well, you know what? I'm still good because I ain't at the 45. I ain't at the 45 mark yet. I'm closer to 40 than I am 50, right? So you're going through the years, and all of a sudden at 45, you know what? You know what? I'm halfway there. I'm still good. I'm closer to either number. Then when you get to the other side of that 45, you be like, oh shit, everything's starting to get serious. All right, it's getting serious up in here. It's getting serious. And so then you come upon the people like me, where I'm no longer 40. I'm no longer close to 40, but I'm about to be 50 in another year. So, of course, I'm well into this grown up stuff. This ain't me practicing no more. I'm well into being an adult. Like, I am 100 legit a grown up, right? And I'm like, okay, so this is midlife. Because for women, midlife is between 40 and 50 ish, right? Somewhere up in there. And then for men tend to go through it earlier, but they come out of it earlier too. They'll hit it in their late 30s, and they'll only go through it until they're like their 40s or 50s, right? Their 40s or so. They're 40s, 45s. Men will go through it. So they go through it a little younger, and because women go through it 40 to 60, I'm sorry, and then men go through it, from late 30s to early 50s. So for men, it's only like a 15-year that they go through, whereas that women, it could span over 20-year for women on average. And so I was reading about the different things that comes with going through the midlife, and not to get into that, but one of the things that I came across was this thing called the invisible woman syndrome. And I had never heard of the invisible woman syndrome before because it never applied to me, right? Now it's starting to apply to me. So, of course, I would take notice. I may have came across it 10 years ago when I was doing research for college, but because I wasn't in the age bracket, it didn't concern me. And so I wanted to Google more about this invisible woman syndrome. And what I found was just I didn't know it was a thing. Like I honestly did not know it was a thing. And I did not know that society has made it a thing because they say that there's a little saying that I put up in the beginning of our in our and what it says was that women it said that women or excuse me men age like wine, fine wine, and women age like milk. That's what someone said. So I'm like, well, milk, when milk age is turns into cottage cheese and yogurt and spoiled milk, when men age, it turns into better, it gets better. And I was like, wow. So I went digging deeper into that. And I just, yeah, it's awful actually, because there is a thing called ageism. And unfortunately, people say that it affects the older people, just that generation that's in their old, there's the 60 and 70s or whatever. But I think that it doesn't affect it affects them collectively and equally, right? In your 60s and 70s. It collects everybody, just equally, men and women. But when you're in that 40 to 50 time or age frame, it doesn't affect men the way it affects women because society puts this thing about women about you're too old for us, you're too old for us to give you to look at you, right? You're too old for us to look at you because you're old, you're old in age as far as us looking at you and say, hey mommy, what's up, or whatever, right? You're too old for that, but you're too young for us to give you our seat on the bus. You understand what I'm saying? So we're in between that. So we're too old for you. We're not old enough for you to, in other words, if I get on the train and all the seats are taken because I'm at that age where I'm still young enough, if there's a young guy sitting in the seat, he's not going to give his seat to me if all the seats are taken. However, if I'm 70, he may very well get up for me, right? But on the other side of that, if that same young man see me passing in the street, he's not gonna holler at me because I'm too old, period, right? For him to even if I look good, he's not gonna say anything because I'm old, so he doesn't consider me in that way. Not just because of the fact that they don't try to pick up. I'm not saying they don't try to pick up women, but when it comes to certain things, we will be overlooked. But now, when it comes to a man is considered wiser the older that he gets. A man is there's some street terms for him when he gets older, where they become terms of endearment, and it puts a man on this thing where, it says that, he the king, he's all this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I'm for it. You know what I mean? If he has the wisdom, then by all means, I'm for it. I don't negate any of that. I want them to be set up on a pedestal. But at the same time, when it comes to the woman, why aren't we not considered the same? Because our wisdom comes with age as well. You know what I mean? So why isn't that we geared by the younger people as being, set up on a pedestal? So, of course, there's more, but I've talked for about 6 minutes. So go ahead.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to digest. And a lot to unpack. But see, there are several things, Yasheka. And this is where I think the dynamic when I speak to and why I think it's important that if we're going to have these discussions that especially ones like this, we have it where it's not just all women or not just where it's all men. So for instance, and I get a chance to write it down when you talked about the way we look at what was I'm trying to remember. For me, for me, I've always been taught that women age like fine wine. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm gonna have to look this up, but I remember hearing songs, old R&B songs, soul songs, where men would sing to that woman and how she has aged like fine wine and things of this nature, that type of description. I also, on the other hand, have learned and done so much by the age of 30 that a lot of men didn't really do or start to discover until they're 50 or older. So I'm grateful in that way. I'm also a man who's done extensive reading. Again, if I showed the number of books that I've read just in terms of relationship, behavior, psychology, it's pretty extensive. And not patting myself on the back, but there's just some things that was just always curious that I realized, especially growing up in the hood, I just knew I wasn't going to learn. However, what I did notice in my coming into later years of manhood, and I will say that going into the late 30s and 40s, the way women changed. And so ageism, let's face it, has always been there. You know, it's always been there. Again, once you get a certain age, people just relegated you to certain things. Also, when you're talking about 50, 60 years ago, gender roles were clearly defined. So if the house was a healthy patriarchy or a healthy matriarchy, women were still seen as wise. However, it was the wisdom of the woman as she got older in life that passed down life lessons to the daughters or to the nieces. And the men passed certain things down to the man. So, for instance, in me coming up, you know, the definition of a man was not more so something where you were chronologically in terms of, yeah, we know that when you turn 18, you can do this. When you turn 21, you can do this. But even then, I challenge that because I'm saying, well, how is it that when we're 18, we're old enough to go off in the war and kill people, but we're not old enough to drink? Something and decisions like that. But yet we had to wait till 21 to do certain things. But even that aside, if you're going to exert your manhood as a grown man, then the first thing you need to do is get out the house, A. Then you bought a house, a place order, because that was setting it up for the woman that you're looking to go marry and then have children with. So you as a man set yourself up for that. Now you have women that are doing that. It wasn't something so common that I saw a lot coming up where you had women, unless of course they chose not to be married or whatever the case may be, but that was just something that I just saw a lot of marriages around me. And so the woman was home raising the children and taking care of home, and some did work, but for the most part that was something that the man did, and he provided. And so the man, in terms of age, I remember, and it's so funny because I still look at certain shows on TV, and I'm like, man, this guy is still a news anchor, whereas very, very few women, and I do say very, are still news anchors. And as I looked into this, I'm like, well, why is that so? I mean, the news is the news. Does it really matter who reads it and what age? But, and I guess this still holds true today, and to your point, Yasheka, in the media, the views of both men and women look at an older man as being more trusted in spreading the news or telling about the news. I noticed that too, and I remember there is we've seen this parallel, and I know, again, to your point, where you see where in Broadway, you see that woman who's past her quote-unquote prime, and she can't get certain roles. However, in her mind, I think it was one famous Broadway show. I think the woman's name was Miss Devereaux or whatever it was, and that famous line, like, "I'm ready for my close-up," because she once again wanted to prove that she still had what it takes at that age, as opposed to when she was in there. We've seen it happen again in movies and in TV, where the woman was the childhood star, and then she became the bigger sister, then she became the mother, and then the grandmother, if she so happens. But based on the movie buying public, what women wanted to see were men, muscle men, action men, very much, the whole machismo, the testosterone-filled things of this nature that only men could pull off. And if it was for women, it had to be very romantic. Now, mind you, we all know in the world of romance, young love is always a love that women aspire to, and from happily ever after, and you retire and go on to that. But at the same time, they use the young actresses because it helped remind them of a younger year. And so, but at the same time, we've seen this with the young guys where they age out of their roles. So there were some men that got into a role when they were young childhood stars and could never get back into anything because people saw that grown ass man as a young boy. Perfect example is I'm dating myself. Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz in Happy Days. For years, he ended up going behind the camera because as he tried to get other roles, people saw him as that young, dark-haired, whatever. In modern times, we look at Harry Potter, the guy who played Harry Potter, and why am I losing his name, who, as he tried to get other roles or tried to audition for other roles, it was damn near impossible. So I think he ended up going to Broadway over in England because people still saw him as that thing in Harry Potter. So I get it. It does happen. But unfortunately, it really truly happens to women more. And also a part of this, I believe, and again, this is just me talking, is feminism also played a part in that. So you have where originally we started out as just being treated as equal, men, and treated fairly, dollar for dollar, we work to do the same job, get the same pay, to a point where another wave where it was like, we don't need men, or, no, and now it's like we are men. So you've got women now wanting to play roles that were normally assigned to by men. They don't want to do the feminine demure roles. They want to be Mrs. James Bond. They want to be whatever. Now, are there roles that for women heroes? Of course, Wonder Woman is one. But what happens is that now you've got this space where they want to blend the gender so women are still in the same spaces that's normally reserved for men. And again, it's going to be interesting how this plays out. But when we're talking about dating and things of this nature, yes, historically, men have always leaned more towards younger women. Now, for many years, that was because they were looking to finish their legacy. And a lot of women, for whatever reason, didn't want to get married. It was all about career and themselves and living their best life. And now they've aged out in a space. And now they want to get back in the fold where the men that they're looking for are not looking for them because they're looking for someone to have children or things of this nature, which I think in some cases some men are just too damn old to even think of that anyhow. But that's what they're looking for. And for whatever the reasons, we've always known men, and we talk about that for years. I remember in the 90s, or 80s and the 90s, when we were talking about the midlife crisis of men. So what does he do? He starts dressing younger, trading in a station wagon minivan for a sports car, Corvette, and then he's out there hitting the clubs again. But see, I learned that's an fool's errand, because I remember there was a comedian, Chris Rock. He said, the one thing I don't want to be is that old man in the club. He says, he may be old enough to get in, but he's just too damn old to be in there looking at all these young girls. And that's something that I talk to men all the time. I says, man, I know the world tries to tell you that you don't age out. But in fact, you do age out. There's a space that, listen, if you're in your 60s, why the hell are you looking for someone in your 30s is beyond me. But here's the reality. There are a number of 60-year-old men who are dating 30-year-old women. Alana Richard being one. Ronald Isley be another one. I mean, again, what men know is that with age and affluence, they don't have to get a woman that's their age. They still believe that they still have it. And again, it's still kind of challenged. I'm still challenged by that thought, because the grandmothers and the mothers of today don't look like the one of 50 years ago. They're not in rocking chairs. You've got women in their 50s and 60s that's looking phenomenal. But yet,
but and I was trying to figure out how you was trying to tie this all back into the invisible woman syndrome.
well, this
So
all,
wait, because you were
what?
talking about because I let you go for 11 minutes.
Okay, I
You,
didn't even know that.
you were talking about we were talking about the invisible women syndrome,
Right.
and then you
Mm-hmm.
started talking about women want to be, at one point they want to be, let me be a wife, then let me be, I want to be equal, then when I want to be the man. And I'm trying to figure out what does this have to do with
Well, because if you're in spaces,
when they, this is the deal. If we're saying we want to be treated equal, it does not mean equal in some things. It means equal in most, if not all things. So if you're looking at a 40-year-old man as being, there's something, you clicking something.
okay, all right,
If
yeah,
you're looking at a 40-year-old man as, or a 40-year-old woman as being old, or let's just say a 50-year-old woman as being old, then why aren't we looking at a 50-year-old man as being old? If we're looking at a 50-year-old woman as too young to get the seat on the bus, then shouldn't we look at the man the same way? So in other words, we want to be equal in most spaces. So, but instead, they look at us and they throw us away and they accept the things that's done by men of the same age. Whereas that with us, it's almost like we're shamed. That's just like, I know, like for example, when Mad show her behind on stage, or when Janet Jackson had a malfunction on stage, or whatever the case may be. Well, Mad showed her butt in her bedroom. She laid on her, and her son took the picture, and they put it in. And then the other rapper, rapper said something about it. When I say Mad, you're talking about Madonna. The rapper said something about it. Not to name the rapper, but said something about it. It was a big thing. And I'm like, okay, but had she been a dude that did that, everybody would have said it was funny. Even though it could have been a dude of the same age, people would have said it was funny. What's wrong with him? He crazy. He lost his mind. Ha 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 ha. Nobody, and his butt would have been probably wrinkled and not as shapely and Botoxed up like Madonna's either. You know what I
well,
mean?
those
You
are
know, old 50-some-year-old behind. You know what I'm saying? But they wouldn't have thought anything of it. They would have laughed about it and said he's losing his mind. Like say if it was Kid Rock or somebody or somebody like that, or the yeah, not Kid Rock, but the other guy, the Rock of Love guy. He's about the same age as Madonna. If he had done that, nobody would have thought anything about it except maybe he's losing his mind. What's wrong with him? And everybody would have talked about his wrinkles on his behind, and it would have been over and done with. So what I'm saying is that because she's a woman, the world made a big thing about it. So again, that's that whole invisible woman thing, right? Just like when Janet Jackson had a malfunction on stage and people went in an uproar, especially, certain people because of the fact that who she was. But a lot of people was talking about what a 40-year-old woman got in business. A 40-year-old woman, so would it have been better had she been 30? Would it have been better? If she was 39, would it have been better? If she was 29, would it have been better? So in other words, they picked it apart, number one, because of who she was, her nationality, the fact that she was a woman, and the fact that she was a 40-some-year-old woman. And they just really, and then that's why the world was in an uproar about it, because they looked at it. But if it had been a dude, and some of these rock stars walk around here usually half naked on stage. Guy rock stars, they behind be sticking out all the time. You know what I'm saying? Nobody says anything about that. They take their doggone G-string off and wave it up at the rock concerts and everything. And these be old rock stars. Nobody says anything about that. They be nude up in there. No one says anything about that, especially in the earlier days. Nobody said anything about that.
yeah. But again, Yasheka, listen, how can I put this? Look, we're talking about something that's been going on for centuries. So I can't remember a time, unless you're at a nudist speech, where women are allowed to take off their top just like men take off their top if they're an entertainer. I mean, yes, men would love for, and I don't want to name any names because I'm not about to be put on blast. Name the hottest female star, be it music or in hip hop. They would love to say, okay, you know what? We're going to do it. The baby, or whatever it takes off their top, we're going to take ours off too because we're equal. That's just not the way that is. So I'm not saying that it's fair. I'm just saying this is what it is. And in a space where you have markets being driven, products being purchased, look at skincare. It is I would argue, say, we all know it's $1 billion market. Some would argue it's $1 trillion market, but it's marketed for youth. And if there's one thing I can say throughout the world, youth is something that's always been chased after, that eternal fountain of youth. So we can try to make this seem as though sometimes it's because some people make the argument of if the man and the toxic masculinity and patriarchy that's driving all this. No, this is something that women play a huge part in this. A huge part in this. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you how deep it goes when we're talking about the invisible, because all of this ties into that. Women chasing the youth because they don't want to become invisible. And again, it's unfair, but this is what it is. So I hear what I'm not going to use example, but I do hear
Why
what you're
do you
saying.
think that women chase now women chase them the youth because they don't want to be invisible. And I get
Right,
that.
right,
Why do you think that is? And we're not just talking about women that are in the dating world. We're talking about women who are housewives and and women who are in corporate America and women that are, doing whatever, whether they're famous or not, whether they are social media influencers or not. We're talking about everyday women. They're chasing the youth even though regardless of their status. Why do you think that is?
well, here's one thing. I believe that, well, I, in researching this particular subject, I read 3 different articles concerning that. And so when they asked the women per se, a lot of that I believe is, again, if you're trying to get into spaces, well, again, let me just use this, Jonas. I believe it's because, why do I believe that women are invisible? Is that the question?
No. Why do you think that is that women are trying to chase youth in order to not be invisible?
Well, again, that is something that you'd probably have to go back as far as hell, biblical times. I mean, we have always wanted to stay young forever, both men and women. However, let's just to be fair, back then, men, in terms of monarchies or whatever it was, were the ones who drove. I mean, they controlled things. So if that man, he was the one who chose his queen, he was the one who chose his wife, whatever it is in any culture, it's always been that way. So be it here in America, Asia, Africa, it's just something that's never changed. If men are the determining factor of who they're going to make, they're the one that they're going to live the rest of their life with. They're going to look for the most useful, the one that's going to be more conducive and carry on the legacy. And I just believe that it's just always continued on from there until we are in modern times. Now, here's the other thing, and going back to the articles that I read, in some spaces, Yasheka, I don't believe the women are as invisible as they believe. Because again, I was reading an article, in all the articles, it was something that the women said they feel invisible. Now, you can feel whatever you want. We can't control that. But that doesn't necessarily make you invisible. Because again, I grew up in spaces, around my household as well as the households of others, where the men actually adore the women and they cherish the years that they shared together. And although, yes, the breasts may sag, they still love and appreciate the woman. But again, even with that being the case, with men really putting in the efforts to make her feel as though she's wanted and appreciated for who she is. If she feels that way, then again, we can appreciate. Now, when you're talking about the greater market or society in terms of media, things of that nature, well, again, I think there are many dynamics in play. And if you're trying to be a part of that, then yes, age unfortunately does play a big role in that, where men is still looked at as getting those roles, and women, the older they get, have to fight for those roles with the younger wave of young women coming up. So I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying it is, and I say it goes way, way back to ancient times. And again, that's just what I come to the conclusion is, in the many books that I've read and the conversations that I have, be they historians or whatever. So
See, and that's the part that I'm trying to get at, right? And
okay,
And we could have, when you said it started in ancient times, we could have ended that part right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it started in ancient times, and women know that the man chooses the woman. We know that because, like you said, it's talking about years and years and decades of tradition, no matter where you were in the world, right?
Right.
If we know this, then why is it that men want to take this stone and throw it at us when they say, well, you guys said you wanted to be equal, yada, 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 yada. But that's not what we're saying, because what has happened, like I always say, you guys have taken our words and you misconstrued them. It's not about us wanting, and the reason why I can't help but to mention that is because you were the one who brought up about the whole women said they wanted to be equal, they wanted to be this, and then they want to be men. Because you brought that into the
I
conversation.
bought the feminism part of it. Yes.
To do with the invisible woman syndrome. It has nothing to do with it. We're not saying that we want, all we're talking about is that regardless of what the world is doing, regardless of however our relationship is, there's an invisible women syndrome for all women, regardless of their relationship status, right? Because of the way that the world sees us. And we get it from everybody, not just men, not just women, not just older people, not just younger people. We get it from everybody. And I'm just trying to understand why. Like for me, because I had never heard it before. I don't know if it's one of those things that's in one culture more so than the other culture. I don't know, because I've never been around other cultures. Because as I get older, my cousins that's my generation, they get older with me. My friends get older with me. So I don't know what they're doing in other cultures, because we respect our elders, and then the kids up under us respect us. So I don't know what they're doing in other cultures about, how they treat people outside of their household. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the ageism outside of my family or whatever, outside of my circle, I haven't had to deal with it, but apparently it's a thing. And the reason why I say I haven't had to deal with this, because there are so many things, and I'm only speaking about me as a woman, that I want. For example, if I'm walking to out of a door and somebody holds their door before me, holds the door before me, whether he's a young man or an old man, I don't see him doing it because of my age. I see him doing it because I'm a lady. You know what I mean? So there's so many things that I don't see. If I go somewhere, because of the way that I'm dressed and because of the way I'm put together, people are not going to overlook me. And if they do, like if I'm trying to check out at a store, or whatever, and somebody ignore me, I'm, hey, I was here first, right? Because I'm put together enough where I don't have, I'm not gonna allow that to happen. So I'm trying to understand the invisible woman syndrome, and how did it come to be? And it has nothing to do with this whole rosy derivative thing. It has nothing to do with that. It's just about how do we get invisible.
Well, again, it does play a part, and I think to go down that road, and I never want to give the impression that all women are seeking, because some women, for the sake of touching on that, we get it. However, and I've always said the minority of the voices are sometimes the loudest. And there are those women who don't want equality, they want dominance. Now, that may not be you, but there are many female voices out there that talk about that. They just don't want anything they really believe that they are men. In so many words, they say this. In fact, one of the articles I was reading was a woman who was saying, she was a self-proclaimed feminist, and one of the things that she was on a bus trying to get a seat, and someone made the smart mark, because she's looking around saying, I think there's also a video going around saying, is there anybody who's going to give up, offer this seat to a woman, to a woman here, I'm on here. And someone shouted out, well, look, this is what equality looks like. If you get here, you get a seat. And then there's a seat available. If not, then stand up like the other men that are standing up as well. And again, these can go to extremes. I was raised, again, I came up in a time that a woman, young, whatever it was, a woman, you give your seat to a woman. Especially, I mean, and I'm, as a native New Yorker, I've seen this play out many times. I've seen women get on, whether they're older, whether they're younger. This is just the way it is. So I understand what you're saying. But to say that some of that doesn't play a part in it, it does. It does. And so, again, I don't think it's fair, but we're talking about something that is years and years and years and years of conditioning. I've just been raised that the older a woman becomes, the more she has to offer. That's just whatever because of years of experience as a woman. So she's done things, she's seen things. If she's been married once, two, three, whatever the amount of times she's been married, that she has something to offer to the younger women that are now coming up. Because one thing we do know that although they may be younger, they don't know it all. And this is where the whole world naive comes in. So again, it really sometimes come up into how we are brought up as you and I and how reviewed and things, but I've never seen women. I was just raised, just never. And again, I'm not someone who was raised by just a mother. I was raised by a mother and a father, but I was always taught to value a woman who is older than me. I mean, especially as Southern parents. So I will still say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to this day. And so this is something that I also try to, as a man, speak to the younger men about women that the older women will always have something of value to give to the world. But of course, unfortunately, we're in a place where there literally is a battle going on, this whole gender thing going on in terms of that. So, and unfortunately, there are women who buy into it as well, where they want to think that they don't want to feel they need to listen to these older women because, what the hell do they know? This is 2022 and, they're out of touch.
Yeah, and I mean, for some things, that's a true statement. For some things, when it comes to matters of the heart, the game don't change, just the players.
Right, right,
Comes to taking care of business, the way you do it is different. I realize that you don't need everybody don't need to go to school to be rich. That was one thing that our parents told us: go to school. When you graduate high school, go to college. Right? We're now realizing that some people don't have to go to college to make it because the end goal is for them to be rich. So for those things, yeah, they can do it the way they want to do it. But for those regular things, that everyday life things, yeah, they need to come to us for it. But when it comes to all this other stuff, they don't need to listen to us because somebody decided that they can make money from home, you know?
yeah,
So we would have never done that, and
right,
our
right, right,
generation would never done that. You know what I
right,
mean? But
right,
these new kids know how to do it.
right.
So some things, yeah. But I just think that I don't know. I think that what's amazing about this, I feel for me, is the things that you begin to notice that you didn't notice before because I don't think that I never really, well, I will say I did because where I come from in my previous life, if you were a certain age, you were just considered old. That's just the way it was because you can retire at such a young age. So, and you were still considered young in the civilian world. If you went in, I mean, you could retire at 30, you could literally still be in your 30s when you retired, from my previous job. So with that being said, anything in your 30s is young, but those kids will say, "Hey, you're old if you're 39," But with that being said, well, so when I look at this as I get older, and I'm reaching those different milestones in life, because 48 it wasn't a big deal. When I reached 48, I was like, okay, 48, this is good. This is good. 48 is good. Even 47, okay, 47 is good. Because there's nothing going on between those years up in there. But then that 49 come, and that's when you realize that you're about to go into another decade. So it's your last year, just like when you was 39, you realize, oh, this is my last year before I hit my 40s. And I'm sure when I turn 59 and so on and so forth, because I think there's always like those numbers that like when you turn that big number, you feel some kind of way. So like for example, if you turn 50, you feel some kind of way. When you turn 55, you feel some kind of way. And then when you turn 59, you feel some kind of way. You see what I'm saying? Those in between numbers, you're just glad to wake up to them. You just be like, thank you, Jesus. I didn't seen another year. When you hit those certain milestones, you're like, okay, okay. But what I say to say all this is that I think that in this journey, what I enjoy about it is just learning something new and realizing and appreciating the different things in a different newness in life. I mean, literally, I mean, when I tell you that it's like oh, whatever. Like I'd be like, and I'm like, I've been on this kick like since last year where I just be like, it just is like when I tell you I don't have a freaking care in the world, I don't have a care in the world. Like I'll huff and puff about something and then I'll go up and I'll be like, okay, that's enough. Like keep the wrinkles at bay. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to keep them at bay, and that's just where I've been with so many things. And I think it comes with age and realizing that there are so many more things that's important in life than all the nonsense. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a beautiful journey, I think. And I think that we really I think this age is really about people. Somebody said when you're able to go through your life and you understand it, that's when you can really appreciate it and you can know where you want to go. So take this opportunity to do the things you want to do and change the things you can, and for everything else, it don't matter. This when that serenity prayer really comes into handy, because it's like, okay, well, you know what, I didn't like this, so I'm going to change this, but I can't do nothing about this, so leave it the way it is. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to keep on moving this way. You know what I mean? And that's it. And I think you get to that point where you don't realize. And I think that even though the invisible woman syndrome may be a thing to women, but I think it's just, and like I was watching this episode of Grace and Frankie, and while I was researching the visible women syndrome, and on the episode, I don't know, did you see it?
I saw one or two episodes because I for the actors and actresses, I thought it was good. Now, there was one in particular that I think may pertain to this, but let me see if this is the same one.
When it was at the grocery store and she wanted to buy cigarettes.
No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it.
Okay, well, she had a meltdown. I forget who's who, but the one that smoke is Lily Tomlin. Matter of fact, she's my we went to the she went to my alma mater, but she's from Detroit. But anyway, um um she wanted to buy cigarettes. And so the other lady was, so when they raised their hand, like, hey, come over here and get some cigarettes so we can buy cigarettes. The guy looked up and was like, okay, so he's coming over. But so they thought that he was coming over to help them. But what it was is that there was a young woman, a young, nice looking woman standing in front of them, and he went over and helped them. So she was like, "Are we invisible?" So he was like, "Are you in the coma or something? Like, how you not see us?" And they was like, "We've been standing here longer than she have. Like, how you not come to us first?" So they're going back and forth. So the girls just had so not Lily Tomlin, but the other lady just had a spasm. Like, she's trying to buy cigarettes. Why did you ignore her? She doesn't have long to live. She got forever to live. Like, she's short on time. Like she's closer to the grave than she is. So help her out so she can get on with the rest of her life. So that's what she pretty much said about her friend. So her friend, Lily Tomlin, pulled her out the store. She's like, never mind, never mind, never mind. So when they get to the car, she's like, I'm so sorry. I just wanted you to have cigarettes. I'm just so tired of people ignoring her. So as she's saying that, she breaks out the pack of cigarettes and starts tapping them. So she looked at her, she said, you stole those? She says, well, what I realize is that if we are invisible, then they can't catch us. And so, other words, take the good with the bad. In other words, because they ain't watching us, hey, whatever. So, and that's how I see it. That's exactly how I see it. I see it like that. In other words, we may very well be invisible. You know what I'm saying? But there are some things that we're doing and nobody's watching, and we're okay with that. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's some
No,
good
I hear.
we to do. It's some
I,
good there. We're making moves. It's
that's
okay.
funny. I can imagine Lily Tomlin. But yeah, yeah, the episode that I saw because I just really wanted to see it because I knew it was a pretty female centric space. I'm like, I wonder is this kind of like the new version of the Golden Girls? But anyhow, there was this one gentleman who was dating. I think he wanted to date her, and I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. Um, Real good looking gentleman. I think his last name is Gallagher. But either way, so he was going on dates with Jane Fonda, and she was kind of having this anxiety
Hmm.
because here's a man who's older, salt, pepper hair, established, and still looks great for his age. But heck, so does Jane Fonda.
Hmm.
So it really came down, and I can't remember exactly how it went. I don't know if she was avoiding him for a couple of times or things of this nature, and the girlfriend's like, "What are you doing? I mean, there's a man comes along and he's whatever." And so it got to a point where I think he came by the house unexpected or caught her, whatever. And she had to confess. She says, look at me. I mean, what do you see in me at this age? You can go out there and date, you know, some young chick or things of this nature. What it is that you see in me. And see, what he saw in her. See, for him, it was like, what are you not seeing you? Even at this age, he's like, I'm no spring chicken either. So what ended up happening was, she was listing off, some of her ailments and things of that way, just in everyday life before she went out there as a woman. And then he's like, well, damn, this is what I'm dealing with, things of this nature. He said, but, you know, this is we are old. We are old, so I don't, and I get it, and it's how, to your point, Yasheka, where she felt that him as an older man, he still had
Options, more options.
options, whereas she did. And I've seen this in my personal life. If I've seen mature women, and they look great for their age, and I say mature as in these women were late 50s or 60s, I mean, great put together, I mean, designer down, and still they're trying to order a drink. And the bartender, both male and female, looked past the women and got the drink for the younger chicks first. And then I've seen that, and I'm looking at this, and finally, now here I am standing behind him. Now, then it came to me, and I says, no, the ladies were here first, even though I was there first. What do you want? Or I would ask ladies, what do you want? Now, they told me, and I got it for them. But they were pissed, just like in the cigarette situation, whatever. However, at the same time, I'm at a bar with the young dudes, chains all over the place, rings, whatever the case may be. I step up to the bar behind them and the bartender, and I made both male and female look past the young dudes and ask me first. Mm-hmm. Because they assume, oh, this guy's older. He's got money. He's going to tip better, things of this nature. So I've seen this play out in so many ways. So I hear what you're saying. But that show's so funny that you triggered that memory and seeing that show, because I truly believe there, and because I don't want this discussion to get to what women really like. Oh my God! For those who just now hearing of invisible woman syndrome, to think that there aren't men out there that really do believe that women of that age are not invisible. Because I've said this, and I had this discussion just last week. I said, listen, well, before I say that, and I don't want to go too long, I remember when 30 was the age that you needed to have it all done by. At some point, people was like, yeah, by 30, I want to have a couple $1 million in the bank, or at least $1 million, the house on the hill, things of this, 2.5 kids, whatever 2.5 kids mean. And this is what it was. And I'm going, but damn, 30, you're just really starting life at 30. And I wasn't even 30 then. I didn't understand what people thought 30 was old. Then they thought 40 was old. See, me growing up, I figured old meant 70 and older. Because again, I came up where you just met women who just looked great, took care of themselves, and things of this nature. Now, yeah, back then, by the time you reach 60, 65, maybe you're in the rocking chair before there was a AARP, but that's not the same now. Even on my Facebook timeline, there are women in their 60s that are, doing phenomenal things. They look great.
You know what? Let me throw a little wrench in it. That's
Okay, then. Okay, then.
I'm
Fine.
here thinking about that.
Right.
I'm here thinking about that because of some things that happened to me today. But let's just take
Mm-mm.
let's take a look.
Okay.
Right. I'm 48, about to be 49. So let's just say, so my men, I would say 10 years older, 10 years younger, right? That would be the age group that I would say, tell a woman my age that she should date in. 10 years older, 10 years younger, somewhere up in here, give or take some couple of years. So with that being said, if you're talking about the men that's 10 years older than me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
For those men, I'm too much for them. And here's the thing. I'm still a young 48 in a lot of ways,
Right.
as opposed to a 58-year-old man, because we're talking about 10-year difference, right? The
Okay.
man, 58, or even a 50-year-old man. Most of them can't keep up with me, right? Because of just the way I carry myself, just the way I am. However, not only that, but he knows that most of what he can offer me, not all, but most of what he can offer me, is not enough to keep me to stay, right? In other words, he has to show up completely for me. Whereas this younger woman over here doesn't have as much as I have. She still look good, and he don't have to worry about trying to impress her, because what she has doesn't equate to what I have. And for her, it's a come up as opposed for me. And I think that that's what a lot of it is when it comes to men, and why men won't too much date women that's in their age group as opposed to a younger woman. Because when you think about it, that's why that's why most of us are overlooked, because they're looking at us like nah, you look like I have had so many men tell me you a lot, you are a lot. And I'm like, what does a lot mean? Like, what does a lot mean? Like, I don't even know what that means. And the thing about it, I can sit there and not say much of anything, and they'll still tell me because of the way I look. They're looking at me, they're looking at my nails, my hair, my black widow spider. I don't even have to say nothing. And then they'll tell me, you look like you a lot. You look like you crazy as hell too. Like, all this is up in the sentence, and I ain't even said nothing. I'm listening to them, and they'll tell me that, and I'm just like, well, I can't win for losing. So it's the confidence, right? A lot of times, and that's what men know. So it's not really about what we look on the outside. It's more of the confidence, and I think that if women really understood that better, I think we would spend less time with. We would still maintain ourselves, but I think that we will probably understand that it's not about what we look like. It's not, because most of the weddings I went to in the last couple of years have been with people that didn't like Beyonce. You know what I mean? They didn't. They didn't like Beyonce, but they had the damn ring and the husband. You know what I mean? So people are getting married, but people are getting married that are, they just themselves. They just whoever. But I think that's what I wanted to throw out there, is that I think that's what it is when it comes to men that are dating women that are in their age group. That's what it is. A lot of.
I would like to push back on the narrative that all older men are this whole binary thing. Now, are there some men who may be a little challenged by a woman's confidence? Yes. I would say most men aren't. What a lot of men look at is, we would call it a return on investment. So, if we're looking at a woman who is
25 is a return on your investment.
not, again, here we go. So, again, and this is when you get into the analogies of cars and animals and things of this nature. So, hear me out. Now, you can debate whether it's fair, whether it's right, or whatever it is. Again, I'm telling you of what it is. So, ladies, for those of you turning in, don't scorch earth me. Okay, I'm just telling you from the thousands of men that I talk to. So, we see a woman who is designer down, Louis Vuitton bags, red bottom shoes, Tiffany jewelry, Cartier watch. We can go, and then we're talking about hair. Then if she is, again, whatever it may take for facials or things of this nature. And again, we know that women, and for women of a certain means, are looking for men of a certain means for money. And we're thinking, okay, and we're not even talking personality yet. So we're just talking about, we're looking at the outer and the rings and all of this. This is something that we've already assumed, the men have already assumed that they're going to have to upkeep, because bags get old, women want to change jewelry, and things of this nature. And so, fair or unfair, these men believe that's going to come from us. So, based on where that man is financially, he's going to say words like, oh man, you're a bit much. Or he may even use words to deflect other than just to say than what it is. He may say it's confidence. He may say, but it's no. It could be the money. It's like, okay, well, damn. This is something that I got to upkeep even before, So for this, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Am I going to get a plate fix? Does she cook? Does she clean? Do I have to get a housekeeper? What is all of this that's going on with that? Again, now, a younger woman, he may not have to put in all of that. Mm-hmm. Plus, he's getting the energy. He looks good amongst his friends. Now, he can still go good amongst his friends with whatever, but if he can get the same return on investment in terms of those esoteric things at
Even
10,000 than
no,
he is at 50, then again, this is just what that is.
and behind
That's just what.
closed doors, it probably sucks. Life probably sucks.
So again, now here's what's going on now when you look at this younger generation. If you listen to any form of popular music, you now have girls in their 20s and 30s asking about Birkin bags, when they're writing rappers or whatever. However, the reality is hitting a lot of these young women. It's like, look, you are not going to be a rapper who's going to drop 30,000 on a bag. So stop. You're going to get that blue collar guy. You guys, this is what you're going to get. So I know there are those men who really buy into what they think they can get from the men or looking for men at that space. But again, those men are a very small part of the population, especially if we're talking black men in particular.
Mhm.
So this is what it is. I'm not saying it's fair, Yasheka. I'm just saying this is what it is. So for the older women who may be looking younger, they're at a disadvantage because the younger men, if they've reached a certain place in their life where they can afford certain things, a 30-something-year-old boy is not more than likely not going to have that. He just doesn't have the means to keep up at that. Now, if she's looking for a good time, do you. But the reality is, if she is looking for marriage, and she has to be honest about, yes, but here's what I do believe, and I'll close on this. What I do believe, that if a woman stays true to who she is, I believe there are more than enough men out there who her confidence, her upkeep, or just in what she is offering is there is a man out there for her. I believe that with everything in me.
Mhm.
And unfortunately for men and certain women, we don't have the patience we used to.
Mhm.
Because as I tell these younger guys, these older gentlemen who really believe, I said, listen, these younger women are not like the one that you listen. I
They
said,
want,
so you
they
can
want
believe all that stuff you
now
want.
they want, like you said, Birkin bags
Yeah, that's exactly. I
and
said, so.
original Jordans, like the $300-400 ones, the ones that come in the plastic now.
Mm-hmm. I said, so you all thinking that you can sit here and take him to Applebee's and that's no, brother. These chicks are dealing,
Yes.
and even, and although Ruth's Chris is not the highest of that, they're starting there. So
Right.
it ain't the same. I said, so I'm always asking a man, what is it that you're looking for? I said, because again, if you're still looking for a fun time, then you're right. Then the 47-year-old woman, because she's had her time. She's not playing with y'all. So don't waste her time. I said, you're more likely to have fun with it. So I get it. If that's what you're going, all right. But you know what? Who am I to say what you should or shouldn't happen? I said, but again, I do believe there are a number of men out there who are looking for the real thing. And
Mhm.
so if the sisters that are in their 40s, I in my brain, I don't know why men or women think 40s, even 50s is old. I just see so many in the 40s and 50s doing still incredible things, from skiing, hiking, surfboard. I mean, you see them working out. I mean, besides all the garbage that's on some of these platforms, you see a lot of mature men and women doing some incredible things, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So, as I look turning to be 40 this year, so you didn't catch that. You didn't, you didn't catch that. But no, I'm loving the spirit in my life. I really am. I'm grateful for where I'm at. I don't take any medication. I'm not suffering with any illness, things
Next
of
year,
this
you'll
nature.
be, wait a minute, next year, if my math serves me correctly, that means next year, yeah.
And I will still be able to do the things that I can do. There are no women that intimidate me. so all of that tired, oh, it's the nah, sweetheart, your confidence doesn't. I'm the one saying, can you handle me? That's the energy that I'm coming with. To say no, no, we don't. And I believe matter of fact, I don't believe, I know there are a lot of men with my mindset, and they're out there doing great things, and they're out there looking for great women that are not half their age. And again, not to pass judgment on males men who do. I'm just saying, be careful what you ask for. just may get it and be honest, because a lot of men, and of course now women are trying to do the same thing that men do. I'm like, no, it was stupid when men do it. It's going to be stupid when you do it too. But
That part.
they have to learn. I says, okay, go ahead, go do what those men do and see how you end up. So um, it's a great thing. But I just don't believe, again, into the subject. I don't believe women are as invisible overall as they believe. But I do understand there are spaces where unfairly there are women that are just being erased because they don't fit whatever the criteria, marketing wise, be it movies, TV, or whatever. I think there's always value in women, period, but especially in women with experience. That also comes with age.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much what it is with this whole invisible women syndrome. They're kind of taught all in together. I just think that if that's something that someone is going through, I think it helps, number one, as a woman, to talk to other women, about certain things. If it's something that you're not sure about, or you don't know if what you're feeling is normal, or why am I feeling this way. Definitely talk to other women that have, like I said, either gone through it, or who are currently going through it. So I would pick someone who's like in my age group, or maybe a couple of years older than me, or whatever, and just see what they talked about or what they go through, because I had to talk to my friends about certain things, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know. Um, and then another thing I would tell them to do is, work on some things that you might want to adjust in your life. If you want to, live a healthier lifestyle, or you want to, go 30 days where you say, I'm going to cut out all sugars, or I'm going to cut out all meats, or whatever. That way you just feel like you're working on yourself in some kind of way. You know what I mean? So you don't have to do it forever, but it just gives your body like a restart to do something different. You know what I'm saying? Like you say, okay, every day for 30 days, I'm going to walk for 30 minutes a day. It just gives your body a restart, something to kind of have you to look forward to, set a goal for yourself. And sometimes when you have a goal set for yourself in life, it kind of gives you something to look forward to, instead of us just doing the same day in, day out, working, coming home, doing this, doing that, going to bed, getting up, starting the same thing over again. When you have a goal set for yourself, it's kind of a way to have a little spark in your life, but have something to look forward to. And then I would also say, in terms of someone that's dating, um, definitely talk to people that are within a certain age. There's a rule that says that there was a thing I read many years ago. I don't even know where I read it from. I don't know where I got it from. But what it said was, if you want to know if how old somebody should be that you date, take your age, cut it in half. Year old person, you cut your age in half, which means 20, then you add 7, 27. So if you're 40, you could date someone as young as 27. I don't totally agree with that, but that's what the rule is, right? But I mean, and if you're 60, you could date somebody that's 37. So that's what it's pretty much saying. So that may be the rule, half your age plus 7. For me, I don't think I would ever date anybody, because I always say 10 on each side. But I know for a fact I would never date anyone 10 years younger than me, because that whole 10 years younger than me, that's just definitely, not something that I'm into. But I feel that when you're out here dating, make sure that you kind of, when it comes to this whole invisible woman syndrome, and you're out here dating, just make sure that you kind of say, okay, let me make sure I want to date the guys that want to date me, or date the women that want to date me, because I think sometimes people set themselves up, and it breaks their heart or takes away from them even more. It makes them feel about a certain way about certain things. If you feel that a person, and I'm not saying that someone is too good for this person, or they're better than you, or nothing like that, but we know, what we look like. We know who our surrounding people are. So I mean, me personally, I would not try to go and date, some rap star. You know what I mean? Because number one, I'm not young, and number two, I don't even hang in that crowd, and he's not gonna come for me. So I wouldn't put myself to get set up for failure, because he's not gonna want to marry me, because he's a rock star. A rap star. He can have anybody he wants. He don't want a 50-year-old woman. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean when I say set yourself up. Don't set yourself up for something that you know it's not going to happen, because your heart might be broken. So stay within, what you can handle. I wouldn't, like I said, don't date somebody that's a rock star or a rap star, and you can't date them. Um, so yeah, I would definitely do that. But I would definitely say stay encouraged, talk to friends, work on some things, give yourself a goal for yourself, and just enjoy it. And like in the Frankie and what was it, Frank and the show Ginger, or Frank and whatever her name, I
Now you
forgot.
got me. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot just that quick. But Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, um, Grace and Frankie, or Frankie and Grace. That's it. Just like with them, when everybody's too busy, looking at you or not seeing you because you're invisible, that's your opportunity to strike. And I really do believe that. You know what I mean? So anyway, Ronnie, this has been a good one, just like always. Do you have any closing words or closing remarks?
If I could say one thing, ladies, it helps if you own your age. You know, this consistently trying to compete against younger women is a fool's game. I mean, you can't. You know, impart your wisdom, be happy for them. You know, cherish the memories that you had when you were that age.
Mhm.
But really, this whole 50 is a new 40 and 40 is a new. I says, ladies, stop with the delusion, because the grown man you're trying to see is not going to waste his time with a
Yeah,
woman who's living in that delusion. And I'm telling you, a lot of women miss out on good men that are around their age because of this kind of talk.
mhm.
He wants to, because it goes back to the conference that you were saying, Yasheka. Ladies, men want a woman who's confident and who's comfortable in who she is. And if that's something that you're still having a challenge with, then of course, I would even say most speak to me, but go to datingdiscussions.com and book a consultation with Yasheka. And the last thing I will say, and I just lost my thought. Oh, I just lost it. It was a good one too. But either way, just own whatever. Oh, and you know what? Just for some further confirmation, really reach out to some men around your age, and you'll be surprised you're not as invisible as you think you are. The men see you, and sometimes now men are at a space where sometimes we don't know what to say or how to say it, because we just never know sometimes how it would be received. But you'll be surprised that the average man out there really does see you all.
Yeah,
And we notice your accomplishment, and we see that you are happy and confident who you are, where you are in your life. And they will affirm that. So take those two closing points, and I trust me, you won't feel as challenged as you are today, wherever the age you are, 30, 40, 50, 60.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that will be all for this particular session of Ronnie and Shika's dating discussion. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please be sure to do so. Make sure you tag a friend, and also go and follow us on Facebook at the Ronnie and Yashika's dating discussion. The same thing with our IG. And if you are here, make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know you're here. Give us a thumbs up and share the video. And we will catch you guys in the next live. Bye. Have a good evening, Ronnie.